This is Lola. She's a pretty radical girl. In fact, in this video, we're going to solve radical equations. Aren't we, Lola? The concepts we will use in this video include solving equations and simplifying radicals. What do you do when you're solving radical equations? Isolate the radical. You gotta isolate the radical, Dave. There's a cat underneath you. So here we are, solving radical equations. Now this is an easy one, though it looks a little complex at first. We see that we have the cube root of x minus 4 equals the cube root of 3x plus 2. Now in this situation, there are radicals on both sides and they have the same index. So really, all you have to do to get rid of a cube root, you cube. And because it's on both sides, we can cube both sides. Well, this makes the problem really simple because when you cube a cube root, the radical disappears. So we have x minus 4 equals 3x plus 6. I think you can finish solving that pretty easily. And you are good to go. Here's another nice, fun, easy problem. And we have an equation where there is a radical expression on only one side of the equation. And when that happens, we want to try to isolate the radical. So I'm just going to isolate the radical, which means get the radical expression alone on one side of the equation. Well, that's pretty easy in this situation. We divide by 6 from both sides, and we get the square root of x plus 10 equals 7. Now, this is a pretty easy problem from here on out. Now, once the radical is isolated, we can get rid of it by squaring both sides. That gives us an x plus 10 equals 49, and we can finish it off. Look at this one. Another fun, easy problem. We have a radical on one side of the equation, and we want to isolate that radical. So let's get rid of everything else on that side of the equation. And we're ready to square both sides. Let's check this one out. We have radical expressions on both sides of the equation, and here is a situation where we happen to have a number that's not inside the radical, but we can't really isolate any radicals because they're on both sides of the equation. So in this situation, we have to be a little careful. We're going to square both sides to get rid of those square roots. Now, when you square this side and everything is underneath the radical just goes away, and we end up with 8x plus 6. Now, on this side, we have to be a little careful because we're squaring both terms. The 3 gets squared, and the square root of x gets squared, which just lets us drop the radical. But be careful with that 3, it also gets squared. And now we can finish off that easy situation. Here's one similar to the last problem. We have to be careful. We can cube both sides, but we got to make sure we cube that too. To get rid of the radicals, let's cube both sides. That gives us an x plus 6 equals 2 cubed, 8, times x minus 1. The cube root of x minus 1 when cubed is just x minus 1, but we had an 8 here, and I put parentheses because I got to remember to distribute. And now we've got common mistake made here, but we're not going to make that mistake. We know exactly what to do. Pretty nice example. Here's a great one that uses what we know about changing forms from a rational exponent to a radical. And we know that anything to the 1/3 power can be written as that quantity, the cube root. So we're just going to change this into a radical form and work from there. And that'll make it look a little bit easier. All I did was change from rational exponent to radical form, and now that radical's already isolated by itself. So to get rid of it, we can cube it, but we'll have to cube that 3 there, which is pretty easy for us at this point. Here we go. That was a nice quick solve. Here we are, last example before we try some on our own, and we've got a rational exponent term that we're going to change to a radical before we isolate and solve. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to write that 3 and change this expression to radical form. Anything to the 1/2 is the square root, right? Equals 9. Now, I would like to isolate that radical because I think I can pretty easily. So all I'm going to do is divide by 3. And that'll get me a square root of x plus 6 equals 3. Manageable numbers to work with. Square both sides. We get x plus 6 equals 9. And doing the simple math on that one, we get x equals 3. And there you have it. And here we are at the you try section of our video. And what I would like for you to do is on the next screen, you'll see these numbers laid out pretty large so that you can copy them down. And if you can, just pause the video, write down these problems, and really try them on your own. Use the examples that we did to see if you can do them on your own. And then after you're done working them out, continue with the video and you'll see me do a quick solve of all these problems, and you can watch and check your work. That would be a great way to practice, see what you learned and see what you still need work with, and then feel confident about solving radical equations.
Thanks for helping, Lola. And thank you for watching.